I'm good.
It's good to see you all. The chief and I just wanted to comment briefly on a tentative agreement that we've reached with the Seattle Police Officers Guild. This contract is good for the men and women of the Seattle Police Department, it's good for the city of Seattle, and it's good for reform. We are very hopeful that the Seattle City Council will pass this quickly. We have our police officers are some of our most important employees. They do a difficult job day in and day out, and they do it in a city that has increasingly difficult challenges, but they've done it without a contract, without a raise since 2014. That's not fair to any workers, so we're glad to have reached this tentative agreement and are looking forward to getting it passed, and thank the Seattle Police Officers Guild and the men and women of the Seattle Police Department.
What were some of the hardest areas of discussion?
Well, let me just say this. First and foremost, I couldn't agree with the mayor more. We're extremely excited about the officers passing this. Since I've been on the police department, I can't think of a contract where we had a higher percentage of people approving the contract. And it was a great effort for a whole host of people, the mayor, the union, the city, and of course the command staff as well. So we are very, very excited about it.
What programs and incentives can move forward now that there's a contract?
You know, I think it's a real tribute to the police officers that even though they've been working without a contract, they continue to do their job day in, day out. So we have not missed a step in moving forward on reform. The judge showed us that by finding that police officers in Seattle Police Department are full and effective compliance. Now we've got to keep it for 2 years, but they never stopped doing their job, which is a real tribute to them. And I think that we as a city now can move forward saying we value your job. It's wrong that you had to work without a contract for all these years, and we're going to move forward together as a city.
That's right. And having this contract pass, hopefully the city council will get their approval. That will give us an opportunity to make sure that we have competitive compensation for the officers and hopefully increase the number of people that we're able to bring into the department, which is really, really important.
Where does the money for the pay raise come from? And is it correct that it's 17% over the time of the contract?
Over the time and period of years, well, the spec deals, but as you know, I'm going to be releasing the budget on Monday, and have been involved in the negotiations that have been ongoing, and one of my priorities was to make sure that we had this in our budget. We do. We are very hopeful the City Council can pass it quickly when we transmit it to them in October so that we can have this behind us and continue to move forward.
Well, then, as you were working out the budget, was there something else or some other areas that needed to be trimmed a little bit to make room for that extra pay?
We made sure that when we went into this budget session, we looked at those things that we thought were the most important. You know, making sure that the men and women of the police department got their contract, we paid for it, taking care of our neighbors experiencing homelessness, looking at basic city services, and to do that without raising taxes, we went to every one of our departments and asked them all to be more efficient. So I want to give you a total sneak preview, but we're able to do that in the coming budget.
Can you talk about internal investigations and if there will be more civilians involved? How do you think that will shape that process?
Well, there was a submission to have some more civilian investigation in the Office of Professional Accountability, so that is a part of the contract. Again, pending the fact that City Council approves it, that will be part of what goes forward in the future.
And how will that shape those investigations?
Yeah, I think it's really important in reform and how investigations, but also for public confidence. So they have agreed to having more civilians in the OPA. They've also agreed to additional employees at the Inspector General's office. And they've agreed to body-worn cameras and all the aspects of reform. They've withdrawn all of their grievances so that we start with a fresh slate moving forward. And as the chief said, we're really excited because this will make us competitive again. There were many police departments in the region that were paying more and that were paying signing bonuses of thousands of dollars. We want our police officers who do the toughest job in the region, day in and day out, to know that we value them.
Absolutely.
Why now, and what was the biggest holdup?
I think that there's a number of things. One, I think it took a long time to reestablish trust at the table. There had been too many years where they'd gone without a contract. I don't think they believed that the city was coming in earnest and was going to be a good bargaining partner. And then I think it helped. The chief was there personally. I was there personally, talking to them, working with them, and we stayed at the table till we got it done.
Yeah, everybody needs to stay fully engaged. I will give Mayor full credit for being there. She was at the table. She was helping usher this along and made it very clear that we weren't leaving until we came to a deal. So She was a great part of she was in great part the reason that we had success.
As was this chief. Look, she started out as an officer in this union. She knows the job they're doing day in, day out. And as chief, she could sit down with them with credibility that nobody else had to say, I need you to be fully engaged and we need to get this behind us.
And Spog said you participated more than other chiefs in the past. Is that right? And did you make a conscious decision that you wanted to send a signal that this was important to you?
Well, of course it's important. As we said before, as the mayor stated, and I've said before, nothing can be more important than ensuring that the officers are fairly compensated. It allows us to be competitive with other organizations. The officers have worked really hard over the last few years to make sure that we were doing the work to mete out the full and effective compliance. And so we definitely wanted to see this come through. And again, it was a team effort. Everybody at the table, the mayor, the chief, the union, the city, making sure we got this through.
What does it mean for your officers feeling a morale boost or knowing that they're being valued and seeing that value in their paychecks, not just lip service?
And just as you said, it's a morale boost, and certainly they feel more valued and they feel like they can get on with the business of doing their work and do so, and that they're being valued by the city.
And it's a real boost, not just morale. I mean, think about how much this city's gotten more expensive since 2014.
Yeah.
2014, they've gone without a contract, without a raise, without a COLA. This tells them not just that we value them, but we expect them to do their jobs in one of the most expensive cities in America. It's only fair that they got a contract.
It seems like could be a fresh start. You being new police chief, now having this new contract, what does this mean for the department starting over in a lot of ways?
Well, we've been moving forward the whole time. We never sat back and stopped working really hard to make sure we met out all of the requirements of the consent decree, again being called a full and effective compliance. So we've kept working the whole time. There's never been a lag or a time when we didn't have the services that we were supposed to provide. We're just thrilled now that it's being recognized and the officers are being compensated.
Chief, does the body cam provision have rules for when they can be deactivated?
The rules around the body camera talk about when it goes into effect, when they turn it on, when they can turn it off. Mostly they're going to be on when they're doing police work.
When can they be turned off then?
If they're not engaged in actual police activity.
So at no point while they're engaged in some sort of activity can they be shut off?
I can't go into all the specifics because I have to look at it, but I can tell you that there's a provision for the officers to wear the body cameras and to utilize the body cameras when they're engaged in police activity.
So safe to say then strict limits on when they can be deactivated?
There are limits on when they can be deactivated, yes.
Who's at the table for these civilian oversight provisions? Because when we would call the Community Police Commission, they kept saying, we haven't seen the contract yet. We have no idea what's in it. So who represents those kinds of interests?
We were working very hard to try to engage both some members of the CPC, but we also talked to the Inspector General and the head of the OPA and some council members as we were moving through to make sure that what we were doing was for the full spirit of reform. Not just in the legislation, but where we see it moving in the future. So we kept, obviously under labor laws, you can't have everyone at the table in the room, but we were wholly cognizant the full time is that we wanted to make sure that reform stayed at the center of what we were doing and would continue to do so. And I got to tell you, I was just again with a group of mayors from throughout the country, and we were talking about climate change. But mayor after mayor came up to me and wanted to know more information about how the Seattle Police Department worked through its reforms. What are de-escalation practices? What are policies and procedures? Because police departments throughout the country are looking at us as a model. These officers have worked really hard to get here, and it's time that this city rewarded them for doing so. And there's no group of workers that should go without a contract that long. There just isn't. And these workers are some of our most important in the city. So I think it's great that we have this tentative agreement.
Couldn't agree more with the mayor on that one.
Can I ask one other question? Is the city moving forward on safe injection sites, or is that on hold?
We are going to be, you'll see in the budget that we will continue to work for safe injection sites. We want this to be part of a holistic system of treatment. So we're in discussions with the county that receives most of the behavioral health funding, both for mental health and also substance abuse disorder, to make sure that anything we stand up would both be funded by the county and the city, but also, most importantly, be a facility that really is about treatment and wellness and public health.
Along those lines, have we picked a site for those locations yet?
We're not at a point where we'd be picking a site yet. We still have to get that framework with the county down.
Are you worried about pushback from the U.S. Attorney's Office, the Justice Department?
We're in negotiations. Obviously, Pete Holmes has been very involved in the discussions, and we took note of what the Department of Justice wrote about this. We're cognizant of it, but we believe strongly in a public health approach to substance abuse disorder.
Cool. Thanks, Joel.
Do you know when
Thank
the council vote will be for the?
We transmitted in October, and then they will have to take it up, put it before their committee, and then to full council, but hopefully they'll do it in an expedited fashion.
You're talking about the contract?
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.